Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so the 2026 FIFA World Cup is going to be a massive departure from the tournaments we've all grown up watching. We're talking about a monumental structural shift that literally changes how the entire globe is going to experience this event. Instead of the familiar setup we've seen for decades, this upcoming tournament is bringing more teams, way more matches, and a completely different geographical footprint. To really wrap our heads around what's coming, let's kick things off with three huge numbers that define this totally new era of the competition.
Number one, 48. For the very first time, the World Cup is expanding its roster to an incredible 48 competing national teams. That's a massive jump from the traditional 32, right? It totally opens the door for a much wider array of nations to finally step up and compete on the world stage.
And, with 48 teams, you get our next number, 104. There will be a staggering 104 matches played throughout the tournament. Honestly, from a purely practical standpoint, this is going to be an absolute test of endurance for the squads making a deep run. But for us fans, it's going to be an absolute feast of international football all summer long.
Finally, our third number is 3. An expanded tournament logically requires a vastly expanded geographic footprint to actually pull the whole thing off. So this event is going to be shared across 3 host countries. Let's dive right into Section 1, the biggest World Cup ever. You see, the traditional 32-team format acted as this highly exclusive bottleneck for qualification. It meant many super competitive regions were just fighting tooth and nail over 1 or 2 spots. But in 2026, the gates are flying open to this sprawling 48-team format, and that completely alters the qualification math across the entire globe. Now, the real impact here isn't just a longer tournament. We're going to see a huge surge in global representation. To put it into perspective, Africa will now have 9 guaranteed spots, up from 5. And Oceania gets a guaranteed slot for the first time ever. This wider net guarantees totally fresh matchups and drastically boosts the odds of those unforgettable Cinderella runs. You know the ones, where a nation that usually struggles just to qualify suddenly finds itself making absolute waves in the knockout rounds. Moving on to Section 2, 3 nations, 1 tournament. Distributing 104 matches requires some serious infrastructure. The United States is going to shoulder the heaviest load here, hosting the majority of the games across its massive NFL-sized stadiums. Up north, Canada is stepping up to host crucial matches in major hubs like Toronto and Vancouver. And then, of course, we have Mexico, bringing a really unique layer of heritage to this whole tri-host setup. Actually, speaking of Mexico, they are officially making history in 2026. They'll become the very first country to ever host World Cup matches across 3 different tournaments. Having famously hosted the legendary 1970 and 1986 World Cups, Mexico brings this deep, tangible, historical weight to the whole event. It's pretty amazing. Now for Section 3, the heavyweight contenders. All right, right at the top of the conversation, you obviously have Argentina entering as the defending champions, so they're carrying both the crown and that inevitable giant target on their backs. Right there with them is France, who are consistently just one of the deepest, most dangerous squads on the planet. Brazil remains a perpetual favorite, as always, bringing their historic pedigree. Meanwhile, the European powers are evolving, right? England is fielding a roster just packed with thrilling young talent, and Spain continues to refine their celebrated, highly technical possession game. The beautiful thing about all these favorites converging is the inevitable clash of styles. It's like a giant puzzle. You've got the methodical, tactical play from the Spanish side colliding directly with the high-energy, vertical transition game of teams like England. All while the seasoned champions are using their sheer tournament experience to dictate the tempo. It's basically the ultimate tactical melting pot. Which brings us to Section 4, Next Generation Football Icons. So while the veterans will definitely set the pace, this expanded format provides a massive, massive stage for the game's brightest young talent. I mean, players like Jude Bellingham and Lamine Yamal are already breaking records at the top club level in Europe, despite their crazy young age. Add in creative forces like Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz, who have just been dominating the Bundesliga, and you've got a generation of rising stars perfectly positioned to become global household names by the end of the summer. There's a saying, World Cups create legends, and 2026 could introduce the next football icon. Teams win the trophies, absolutely, but the World Cup is ultimately the forge where individual immortality is created. Which of these young stars is going to seize that mantle and deliver a legacy-defining performance? Honestly, watching that unfold is going to be one of the best parts of the entire competition. And finally, Section 5, who will lift the trophy? We are seeing a really beautiful duality heading into this tournament. On one side, the experts are safely backing the heavyweights, the deep, tactically refined squads from South America and Europe. But on the flip side is the very real unpredictability of knockout football. With a massive 48-team field, the odds of a previously overlooked nation stepping up to shock the traditional giants and pull off an unforgettable upset are literally higher than ever. So, what does this all mean? The 2026 tournament expands the very boundaries of international football. 48 teams, 104 matches, spread out across 3 nations. But at the end of it all, there is still only one champion. Looking at this expanded format, the intense tactical matchups, and the incredible rising stars we've explored in this explainer, who do you actually think will lift the trophy in 2026? Are you backing the established powerhouses for a sure thing? Or are you predicting an unprecedented underdog shock? Share your predictions down in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.